It seemed as though I were a pervert pursuing my wife. I was saddened to have to take such drastic measures, but something had to go. I'd known for the past few weeks that something was wrong. It's not what I wanted to be real. I was forced to find out even though I didn't want to. My 8-year wife, Sherry, with whom I had shared a home, was exhibiting all the symptoms of adultery. All the minor things that bothered me but never totaled up to anything significant. I looked through the obvious items like emails and phone conversations, but nothing was there. Sherry wanted to stay at home with her husband, even though we didn't have any kids. Making stained glass windows and jewelry took up the most of her day. I was delighted that she appeared content. I opened a tiny legal practice in a retail center using my legal degree. I handled wills, property transfers, no-fault divorces, and other common legal affairs. I wasn't a unique trial lawyer. One of the most fascinating aspects of my work was managing bail for a nearby motorbike club. I acted as a go-between for the bail bond firm and the club, making sure everything went smoothly. But I did not offer the bail. In the rare instances where someone needed legal assistance, I would recommend them to a friend of mine who dealt with criminal matters. He would send me a ton of little, pointless cases in exchange. There was win-win for all. Anyway, Sherry told me today that she and her friend Mary Jane were going shopping, and she asked if I wanted her to pick up something for me while she was gone. I made the decision that today would be the day I either looked foolish or learned something I didn't want to know for whatever reason. So here I am. When Sherry got to her friend Mary Jane's house, she went inside. About half an hour later, Mary Jane exited the house by herself, got into Sherry's car, and headed down the street. I didn't follow her as I had a GPS tracker installed in my car. A man arrived in the driveway about 20 minutes later, on a brand new Harley-Davidson touring motorcycle. Though he appeared to be a biker, something wasn't quite right. He went inside without ringing the doorbell. Just before he went inside, I was able to grab one good picture. I grabbed some nice pictures of the bike and license plate, after waiting for around 5 minutes. After 30 minutes, I found myself at Parkview Plaza, trying to find Mary Jane. I looked up the number plate while driving to the mall. Mary Jane was trying to unwind as much as possible. One of those awful food court plastic chairs. When I sat down next to her with my coffee, she gave a little leap. "John, what are you doing here?" "You scared me. It was almost impossible for me to settle in." I just sat there and sipped my coffee, not bothering to address her. It was scorching and black. All these new fancy drinks they were calling coffee, I was never really into it. She was starting to feel anxious. I watched her fidget in her chair and laughed to myself, attempting to ascertain her capacity to manage the circumstance. I made the decision to absolve her. "Mary Jane, unwind. I am aware of her location. I am aware of who she is with and what she is doing. That's not important to me anymore." She raised her hands to her lips. "BT Shay." Nothing happened, but I was expecting more. I was anticipating a row of stamps. "Permit her to remain at your house. Later I'll send over everything she has. Any inquiries?" I went away, and all she did was shake her head. Originally a bar establishment, the meat pit ultimately changed its name to a biker bar, where they served great brisket. It was definitely not a place for families. Weekend business was fairly solid, but weekday evenings were more chaotic. Hector Turpin gave me a chilly long neck the moment I went through the door. "Counselor, welcome to our house. You're not around very often." Even though it was mid-afternoon, the environment was being enjoyed by at least 20 members. "Counselor, are we in jeopardy of any kind?" "No, you're not in danger. However, I find myself in a bit of a pickle." Around the round table, Hector, myself, and a couple of other club members engaged in a brief conversation. On weekends, Terry Evans appeared to be a frequent visitor to the pit. He was one of those individuals who enjoyed believing they belonged. They recognized his picture and the bike right away. Hector gave me a big smile and assured me he would handle everything. I had all the information I needed to know. I went home because there was still plenty of time. After an hour, Sherry's personal items and clothes were all neatly put into black garbage bags. That I could fit it all in the car astounded me. She would have to come see me later if she wanted appliances or furniture. She had not left the house, but her automobile was parked at Mary Jane's. After placing every bag on the porch, I left in silence. I could see Mary Jane eyeing me out the window. Sherry didn't return calls. Nothing to message. No excuses, no emails. It's true that I had to return for the rest of her hobby equipment. I simply placed them on the veranda. I prepared a basic divorce petition and submitted it to her. As she awaited the filing clerk, she signed each document. Was there regret at all? I will never be aware of it. Was there remorse? I will never be aware of it. Do I give a damn? Absolutely not. That weekend, I had a drink. On Monday morning, I discovered that we had been broken into when I got to work. Not much had been taken, but there was a big pickle jar full of bolts and nuts on my desk. I went straight for the phone. Hector, my treat is lunch at Red Lobster at noon. I had to leave a message, of course. He would never wake up that early. He enjoyed 2 helpings of cheddar cookies and ordered the fisherman's platter. Would you like to know, my friend? Or is it better if I didn't tell you anything? I'm all right. Give me all the information, Hector. Dude arrived at 4 o'clock. He was approached by 2 of the guys to play 8-ball after they struck up a conversation. He had never before been included in a game or even acknowledged, so he was overjoyed. We got coffee, but 4 went dessert. 2 potential clients were shown a toolkit and instructed to disassemble my main man, Butterball's motorbike, outside. Every screw, bolt, and nut was supposed to go into a pickle jar. They didn't have to disassemble the engine and gearbox, which made things simpler. They spent about 3 hours on it. After finishing, they removed the pickle container. They made coffee for us. The guys left after abruptly ceasing to play 8-ball. Evans was approached by Kiki, Butterball's elderly lady, who whispered in his ear. Glancing around, he made his way slowly to the entrance. He glanced at the parts pile where his bike was lying, before continuing on his path. The last time we saw him boarding the Uber was at that moment. So now I can proudly own a custom-built Harley? Hector had to bite back a chuckle. Sort of, anyway. Sadly, nearly all of the other sections had disappeared by morning. To him. What did she say? I believe someone stated your wife's name, but I'm not positive. The remainder of the week went by as usual. Now that the divorce papers were filed, there was nothing more to do but wait. It's a long time minus 90 days. I still hadn't spoken to Sherry. Although I missed our conversations, I was unable to accept the other option. I contacted Terry Evans at Monsanto Automotive just to pass time. He left no forwarding address and ceased to work there. There was no complaint of a damaged motorbike, according to a law enforcement officer in the area who I know well. Mary Jane and I met into each other at the mall 2 weeks later. It was merely a fortuitous meeting. With a cup of coffee in hand, she was seated in the food court. I'm not sure why, but she had a melancholy appearance. Would you mind if I joined you? This time I didn't shock her. All she did was nod and smile. We had a brief period of silence. She finally sighed a little. I apologized to John for ruining your marriage. No, you didn't. Yes, she did. However, I assisted her. I exerted every effort on her behalf. I had to help her since I couldn't say no to her. My only friend was her. We sat in silence for a few more minutes. Now she's with him? No, she went back to live with her folks in Frackville. He simply vanished, no email, no text, no word. He appeared here one day and vanished the next. Was she angry? She didn't care about him at all. She was concerned over losing you. My next query should probably be, why did she do that? I don't want to know though, you know. Mary Jane, I appreciate your time. As I was leaving, I believe I spotted a tiny tear. At work, the day was uneventful. It was still 2 weeks away from the final divorce. I was attempting to estimate the quantity of screws, bolts, and nuts in the pickle jar. I was curious as to what Kiki had murmured in that man's ear. Well, I'll never find out.